Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday. Hope we're having a very warm start to our weekend out there because it is brutally cold for much of the country. Now, there is some good news in this video. A big time pattern change on the way, really starting as soon as tomorrow, but really especially going into next week. We'll begin a much warmer trend. However, that does come with multiple downsides, including the risk of an ice storm, some more snow for other folks, and big time flooding potential through much of the country. So, this springtime weather that we're going to get here is definitely going to again come with some not all good news and definitely some sprinkles of bad news in there, but overall I think most people will definitely enjoy this pattern change compared to what we've been seeing here through the first half of January or so. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and of course, comment. Let me know what you're seeing out there. And I do want to say thank you here at the beginning. Now that things have kind of calmed down a little bit in the weather department here, those views that I'm getting now are from those of you who are usually just regular viewers sticking around. So it means a lot to me. Those of you who, whether the weather's active where you're at or just kind of boring, come back every day and still check in. It means a lot to me, and that's what really keeps this channel going. If it wasn't for you folks, I'd have no reason to wake up on some of these quieter days to record these sorts of videos. And again, some of you were even here during the summer last year when every day was just kind of hot and humid, and it was basically saying the same thing. So again, really that just means a lot to me, those of you who always come back. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into it because again, we do have some active weather out there. It's not going to be quiet for everybody. And we'll start here by taking a look at our infrared satellite. You know, I love using this in my videos here during the morning, and today is no different, although it's really afternoon now and not really so much morning. But either way, you'll notice here we've got a couple big players on the field here. We've got this low pressure continuing to slowly work offshore, that bringing very strong winds out of the north on the backside. That is what has led to big time lake effect snow here really over the past couple of days here through much of the Midwest and into the Northeast, and that will continue through much of today. Now, the other obvious pretty big-time player on the field here is this other big-time storm system here, just off the coast of kind of Oregon and California there near the Eugene area. That bringing a slug of moisture here into the western half of the country. And in a minute, we'll zoom this out and look at this on a little bit more of a wider scale. And you'll notice we've got a big-time atmospheric river coming in off your screen here. That eventually is going to lead to rounds of low pressure and storms likely to cross through the country here going into this week. And again, that is going to bring problems with it, including the potential for big-time ice storm impacts, flooding impacts, but also for others, just kind of some very spring-like weather with warm temperatures and rainy days. Now, taking a look at our watches, warnings, advisories, and radar imagery out there, you'll notice we've got a big section of the middle of the country and the southeastern part of the country that's really getting in on these brutally cold temperatures. These are wind chill advisories in the kind of light blue there, and we've got hard freeze warnings in effect into the purple colors on your map. And just to let you know how cold this air is, we've got wind chill advisories here in Florida as far south as Tampa Bay and there into Port Charlotte, into the Charlotte Harbor there, and just north of the Naples area. So a lot of folks here, even down near Fort Myers, getting in on wind chill advisories. Again, I think that does a great job at just showing exactly how kind of ridiculous this air mass is in terms of that cold air. And we'll take a look at exactly how cold it could get here in just a moment. Now, the other kind of thing I want you to notice here is we've got winter storm warnings still in effect here for sections of northern Indiana, extreme southwestern Michigan for that lake effect snow. Also up into the Erie, Pennsylvania area, still have some winter storm warnings in effect again for lake effect. And then winter weather advisories up here into the UP of Michigan, where, once again, as I just said, that lake effect will continue to work on through. Now, final area we're going to look at here before we kind of get into the forecast is out west, and we've got winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and even some flood watches out here depending on your location and elevation. Obviously, the winter weather in those higher terrains and that flooding a little bit closer to the coast here, where again this atmospheric river is likely to continue through at least the next 48 hours, but even beyond that, it's going to stay quite active here. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about this. I'm going to very quickly run through the lake effect snow, what's left with that, and then we'll talk about this big pattern change and kind of the storm systems associated with it. Now, again, through this afternoon, we're expecting that lake effect snow to continue here in pretty big time quantities, really where we have those winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings still in effect. So obviously here through western Michigan, northern Indiana, up here just kind of into the Erie, Pennsylvania area, and then also into the UP of Michigan. All of those areas are going to be the big winners today, and even into upstate New York could see some lake effect snow throughout the day as well. Now that continues throughout today. This is getting into tonight, still ongoing, but likely a bit lighter before I think finally, by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, most of that lake effect machine should slowly kind of taper off as our winds are slowly but surely going to shift directions here and just kind of cut off that energy from the Great Lakes. Now, snowfall totals here left to come. Again, not a lot left, but still enough that it's worth mentioning here through western Michigan and into northern Indiana, extreme northern Indiana at least. Still another couple inches of snow to come, maybe even another half a foot here in extreme southwestern Michigan, not out of the question, and another dusting to an inch or so up into the UP of Michigan as well throughout the rest of today. Now, a little bit more out here towards Pennsylvania and New York. Again, here into the Erie area, up into sections of Buffalo and into these kind of other surrounding areas on the Great Lakes here through New York State. Again, another couple inches today. Isolated spots could still pick up another half a foot, not out of the question here in isolated spots. So we'll continue to watch that. And again, if you got any cool pictures, definitely send them to me with the link in the description there. All right, that's the snowfall we're seeing. Now let's talk about this Arctic air mass, because obviously it's a big deal. A lot of people are feeling it. Here at my place in Charlotte, I'm recording this at about 11, and we still are sitting at about 28 degrees outside. So we get these kind of air masses usually once or twice a year, and this weekend happens to be that time for many of us here through the east. And tonight's low temperatures pictured on this map, it's going to be brutally cold. Again, single digits and below zero, likely through much of the Midwest, even down into much of Tennessee, likely to get into the single digits or even close to zero tonight. And we're going to be in the teens through much of the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, back through Louisiana and Arkansas, and even up through the Mid-Atlantic. And again, look at how far south these cold temperatures get. We're getting into the 30s, well into central Florida here tonight, and even into the 40s. Again, as far south as Fort Myers, down towards Naples, Miami tonight, likely to get into the lower 50s. So again, this is very abnormally cold air for what we're used to this time of the year. Now, the good news is, going into tomorrow, we start that warming trend. So you'll notice temperatures here, obviously still cold, but a little bit better than what we've been seeing. And again, these are high temperatures for our Sunday afternoon. And eventually, by the time we get into Monday afternoon, we're really rebounding. And look at all this warm air now flooding out of the Gulf and slowly bringing our temperatures back up here. Really starting Monday, I think will be the first day that we kind of walk outside and say, okay, this is much more of what I'm used to this time of year. Compared to kind of what we're going to see today and tomorrow. And then obviously, as we get later into next week, that's only going to feel better through much of the country. Alrighty, now let's talk about this pattern change, exactly what it means for your location, what you're likely to see out of it. This is a map I don't show very often on the channel, but I think, again, it's very important for kind of the pattern that we're seeing. This shows wind speeds here at about halfway up into the atmosphere. So again, this is kind of 500 millibars is where most of our weather is kind of driven. This is where generally most 500 millibar maps just kind of show us the overall synoptic pattern very well, and this does a very good job at that as well. So what you'll notice right off the bat here, and I'm going to pick a color that should show up pretty well here in black, we've got very strong winds here out of the Pacific, blowing kind of towards the United States. Now, this is what we call kind of an atmospheric river, or the Pacific jet, if you will. And basically what this is doing is this is picking up all of that moisture over the ocean and just kind of slugging it towards the country. Now, moisture is one thing it's picking up, but also over kind of, this section of the Pacific, the air temperatures are pretty warm and mild. So the country is likely going to get flooded with this moist, mild Pacific air through much of next week. And you'll notice as I move this ahead into time, that continues to slowly slug eastward here. And we even get kind of amplifications of that into the country. And what we're also likely to see out of this is another trough kind of dig down into the central western part of the country, and that is going to lead to enough divergence over the eastern United States here that we're going to get plenty of precipitation. So again, kind of just what I have drawn here, this open space, if you will, on your map, that is our divergent side of this trough. And what that means is there's basically a void in the atmosphere. So what it has to do is it has to kind of fill that void, and that causes rising air at the surface. And eventually all of that rising air is going to condensate, form into cloud cover, form into rain. And again, it's going to be very rainy here east of the Mississippi through all of next week, as we have a combination of this very kind of well-placed trough and that very mild, moist Pacific air as well here working in tandem. So we're going to start out west. Again, it's already raining out here from this overall weather pattern, and today that is going to continue. We've got heavy rain at the coast from Oregon down through California, snow in the higher elevations, and even some ice here that we're going to have to watch out for once again overnight tonight here into northern Oregon and southern Washington state. Another ice storm likely in store for you folks here before hopefully things warm up again going into this week, and we should be able to melt some of that ice. I know folks in Portland have been having a real skating rink here the past week or two. Luckily in those areas, more rain for this event. Most of the winter weather will be kind of pushed up towards the higher elevations. You'll notice here, though, going into tomorrow morning, again, just a slug of moisture working on through the western half of the country. Snow in the higher elevations, rain in the lower elevations, and some ice even, again, mixing in here. And we'll talk about those ice totals here in just a second. Now, going through our Sunday afternoon, this continues, all of that rain, all of that moisture continuing to work on through, and you'll even notice down towards Texas, our first storm system gets working here, and we'll talk about that in a second whenever we look at the eastern half of the country. But for now, just focus on all of this rain and snow falling out here through the west coast and into the Rockies. And even going into our Monday morning, again, another slug of moisture comes on through, and this pattern likely to hold in here for a while. Now, over the next 48 hours, ice totals, again, it's going to be enough that we need to be concerned here with widespread areas of a glaze to 1/10 of an inch, and even isolated spots here kind of in this circled area on your map. 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of ice, not out of the question, and that's plenty enough to cause big-time travel concerns and power outages for a lot of communities here along the Washington and Oregon border here, kind of in the central part of each state. Now, snow is also going to be something that we need to talk about here. Again, the higher elevations likely to get most of it here through the Rockies, through Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and even into Montana and Wyoming. Very good helping of snow there for the higher peaks and really the highest peaks. Even kind of the middle terrain peaks might get flooded by some of that warm air and just see some good old-fashioned rain here. Now, further south into the Sierra Nevadas, I think is where we're going to be the real winners here in the snow department. A lot of it on the way here. Feet of snow is probably how we're going to be counting this when all is said and done over the next 48 hours and really through the next 5 or 7 days, again, as this pattern persists into next week. All right, let's discuss the East Coast now. This is an area that I'm also concerned about for some wintry weather out of this. Again, we've got such cold air in place right now. It's going to take time for it to get out of here before some of that precipitation moves on in. And here we go into Sunday afternoon. You'll see how that's going to create some problems. Looking back here towards the Red River Valley into Texas and Oklahoma, we've got some freezing rain showing up on our future radar here, and that's only going to continue throughout the afternoon hours of our Sunday and even into the evening hours. Before overnight Sunday, we've got a big plume of ice now breaking out here through eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma into Arkansas and Missouri. Again, still very cold air in place at this time, and this precipitation overlapping that likely going to lead again to some of those wintry precipitation types, including freezing rain, which is a really big time concern here. Now, as I move this further ahead into the overnight Sunday into Monday, again, this slug of wintry precipitation keeps on trucking here. We've got ice still in Oklahoma into Arkansas, now up into St. Louis, back up through Iowa as well, seeing some ice here. Luckily to the south of there, into southern Arkansas and Texas, this will likely just be a rain event. Don't have to worry about winter weather that far south, but flooding will be a threat. We'll take a look at those rainfall totals here in just a second. Now, this is waking up Monday morning. Again, you'll notice this wintry kind of precipitation and a winter storm continuing here through much of Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, Missouri, and into Illinois. Even some snow now breaking out here into the northern periphery here, where we have enough cold air throughout the atmosphere that we don't have to worry about that icing quite as much. Now, moving this further ahead into time, switching to our global model here, the GFS, I think, does a good job at picking up here on Monday morning. You'll notice, again, that ice still taking a hold here through much of Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, Missouri, and now snow breaking out here into Wisconsin, Michigan, and into northern Indiana and Illinois here. Now, as I move this further ahead into time, going into kind of our Monday afternoon and evening, you'll notice that warm air now very kind of moving in quickly as this high pressure moves offshore, bringing that southerly flow here combined with that southerly flow from the trough. We're going to get a real squeeze play between these two air masses. That's going to lead to a couple problems here. One, that's going to really squeeze out all the moisture we can, so very heavy rainfall totals, which I guess is really the main problem here. But the good side of it is it's also going to very quickly flood that warm air in. So you'll notice that ice that was falling in Oklahoma and Arkansas, by the time we get into Monday evening, is now pushing all the way up into Illinois, where we could see a little bit of an icy mess there going into, again, the same kind of time frame here into Monday evening. And eventually, by the time we get into our overnight Monday and into early Tuesday morning, I'll move this further ahead into time. Again, by the time we're about waking up on Tuesday, that warm air is now flooded all the way up even into southern Michigan. Again, as that very strong southerly flow overtakes much of the country here, and those very warm temperatures and that very strong moisture flow continues to work on in. And now Tuesday morning, though, again, we do still have cold air up to the north. So we could see snow breaking out here, I think, into New York State, central and northern Michigan, central and kind of areas of Wisconsin, back towards Iowa and Nebraska. But you'll notice this band of snow kind of works on through pretty quickly and eventually even dies down a little bit before later on in the week, kind of going overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, another slug of moisture works on in here. And this time, this should be more rain than anything else for just about everybody from about Wednesday on, as that warm air really works in, and we just get round after round of precipitation here. Thursday afternoon, another round of very strong, divergence aloft and convergence at the surface, just meaning rain here. For Thursday afternoon through the southeast into our Friday, now raining still very good, and another round going into next weekend here. Which this final round, if you will, I think kind of about a week out from now, may finally bring the cold air back. So I think really starting again Monday through Saturday, that warm trend, very rainy trend as you just saw. After that, though, we could moderate the pattern just a little bit. Again, going into the last couple days of January here, some cold air may once again try to work back in as we try to bring things back down a little closer to average. But either way, again, Monday, we've got that snow and ice threat. Tuesday, still a little bit more snow and ice, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's going to be just about all rain for everybody here, and very warm as well. Now, rainfall totals here, again, something I'm concerned about. Our latest model guidance here, sections of Louisiana and down into Mississippi and sections of the Memphis area could really get flooded out of this. And you got to remember, we've still got a lot of snow and ice on the ground here that's about to melt with all of this warm air. That combined with anywhere, potentially near half a foot towards a foot of rainfall, not out of the question in isolated spots here between Monday and Saturday afternoon. Flooding problems are going to be a big time concern here from, again, this kind of circled area on your map, and even further up into the southern Appalachia chain through the Greenville-Spartanburg area, Asheville, Knoxville could see some flooding concerns as well throughout the week as we get these rounds of heavy precipitation to work on through. So again, that's one side of the storm system. The other side that a lot of you, I'm sure, are also very concerned about here is the ice. And there is some good news here. Obviously, these totals do look rough, but let me give you a little bit of kind of reassurance here that it might not be quite as bad as pictured on your map. This past week or so, it has been so cold that any ice that fell kind of hung around for a while. So I think it felt, I don't want to say worse than it was, because obviously the real impacts are more important than the impacts on paper here. But again, whatever ice falls here Monday going into Tuesday is likely to be gone by Wednesday, as that warm air very quickly floods in. But before it does, again, we could see some big time totals here. I think 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch is quite likely here through central southern Missouri into eastern Oklahoma and into northwestern Arkansas here. Isolated spots could see more than 1/4 of an inch of ice. So during that 12-hour period to 24-hour period that this is happening, again, do not travel if you don't have to. Be prepared for any kind of power outages that may occur. But again, the good news is that warm air is not far behind and should pretty quickly erode whatever ice does accrete here. Now moving this to the kind of central Ohio River Valley here, again, ice is also going to be possible here through central Indiana, central Illinois, northern Indiana, and into southern Michigan. A glaze to 1/10 of an inch, not out of the question. Isolated spots could see more than that, but same story here. That warm air not far behind, so luckily whatever accretes here should kind of dissipate relatively quickly. Now, snowfall totals, again, not going to be a blockbuster storm by any means, and I will also mention same story with the snow that we're going to have with the ice here. It will snow, but again, that warm air not far behind, so again, should only see, a day or so of kind of impacts from this. But either way, total snowfall here from our blend of models. Again, not a lot showing up here. A dusting to an inch or so through Nebraska, Iowa, and a little bit more, I think, into Michigan, where we'll have a little bit more cold air and trapped for a little bit longer. Could see a couple of inches here into northern Michigan. Again, though, not really a blockbuster storm for you folks. And same story for the Northeast, through New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire. Again, a couple of inches of snow possible here with that first batch of snow kind of earlier in the week before, again, that warm air takes over and we once again kind of melt everything that is around. Now, temperatures, again, something I'm sure a lot of you are probably a little more excited to hear about than the rainy side of things. Again, though, we've got to get through this weekend. Obviously, these are today's temperature anomalies, very cold compared to what we should be this time of year. That continues into tonight. Again, waking up tomorrow, brutally cold. We looked at those temperatures. That hangs around even into Sunday and into Monday. But this is Monday afternoon. I want you to notice temperatures now slowly starting to rebound, much more average through the country outside of where we're seeing some of that rain and ice falling over the central plains. But by the time we get later on into next week, look at all of this orange and red overtake the map. We're well above average here. Wednesday afternoon, now about 10 degrees above what we should be this time of year compared to 30 degrees below what we should be this time of year today. So within the span of 4 or 5 days, we're going to have massive temperature swings here. And again, that continues through much of next week here. This is going into next Thursday afternoon. Now isolated spots getting 20 degrees above what they should be this time of year. And that hangs around into next weekend before I think we'll have to watch again from that point on to see if maybe some cooler temperatures try to work on in. Now, just to give you an idea of exactly how cold is, how warm is, 15 to 20 degrees above what we should be this time of year. Well, this is the forecasted high temperatures for next Thursday, straight from the National Weather Service. And look at some of these temperatures. We're getting well into the 60s and even 70s here in the southeastern part of the country, up into the 80s through much of Florida. And even, 40s and 50s well up into the Ohio River Valley, into the Northeast. And just about the entire country here west of the Mississippi is going to get above freezing for afternoon highs here during the second half of next week, which again is quite different than what we're seeing out there right now. So I'm sure that's some good news for a lot of you folks who are probably tired of this very cold Arctic air that has been hanging around here for so long. Alrighty, well, again, hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found some use in it. And again, I appreciate you hanging around till the end with me. Again, that really does mean a lot. And you folks are really the reason that, again, the channel can keep on going here during times that are maybe a little bit slower or a little bit not as chaotic as we've seen the past 2 weeks. But, of course, a break is good for everybody, including myself, as you could probably imagine. Alrighty, well, hope you have a great rest of your Saturday out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.